Is this going to be the ultimate clash of the titans for a head-to-head battle for irons? Let's find out. Hey everybody, Matt Williams Golf. Welcome back to the channel. This might be the most excited I've ever been for an iron review, particularly a head-to-head battle for two awesome irons. And the irons that we're going to be reviewing and comparing to one another are the Taylormade P770 and the Callaway Apex Pro for 2021. Now, just a quick little backstory for those of you that haven't been a regular follower. In 2020, I started the year as a 16 handicap. And at the end of the year, I got down to an 8.5. Now here we are in March of 2021. We've just started posting scores again. I'm actually now down to a 7.5 handicap. So I've been working really hard on my game. But that said, I've still got a very average swing mechanics. And I launched this channel because I thought there would be some appeal to many golfers to see the perspective on golf equipment from a very average golfer's perspective. And thus, here we are. Well, if you also have been following my channel, you know I'm on the search for new irons. Now, when I review irons, I do so for two reasons. The number one primary reason is to review golf equipment, drivers, fairway woods, hybrids, putters, you name it, absolutely everything. To review that equipment, to just give you my perspective, again, from a very average golfer's perspective. The other reason I sometimes do irons is because I'm testing to see what's always going to go next in my bag. Well, right now, if you've been following my channel, you know that the Taylormade P770 is the leader in the clubhouse and with respect to my favorite iron out there, and the one that I think is just the leading candidate to go into my bag. I've been dying to get my hands on the Callaway Apex Pro 2021 version, and here it finally is. Now later on, I'm going to be doing a review of the entire run of the Callaway Apex Pro irons, but here I'm just going to be testing 7-iron and putting it up against a 7-iron of the Taylormade P770, and I'm absolutely thrilled. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get this thing going. Now before we start testing these two irons and pitting one against the other, one titan against the other, what I want to make sure and ask you to do, as I always do, is to make sure, if you haven't already, to subscribe to my channel. If you like this video and are really curious to see how this goes, make sure and smash that thumbs up button for that like. And leave me a comment below which one of these two irons you think you'd game based on the results that we'll go over later in this video, or if you already game one of these irons, or if you have any questions. As always, I get a lot of questions on my videos and I try my best to get to all of them. So make sure, comment below, smash that thumbs up button. If you're not already a subscriber, do so now. Without further ado, the Callaway Apex Pro and the Taylormade P770. Here we go. Matthew. Now I've learned in prior testing to always rotate through the clubs, to never just do one batch of swings all at one time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 20 swings of each iron. Now we've got 7-iron in each iron, and we have 120 gram shafts in both. Now this is just the setup that I have today. It couldn't be the exact same shaft. I've got the KBS Tour 120 and I've got the True Temper 120. I think it's the Elevate. I'd have to double check, but they're both 120 gram shafts. One's True Temper, one is KBS. That's just the setup that we had today, but I still went with the exact same weight. They are both the exact same loft. Both of these are category of what you'd call more traditionally lofted these days, and they're both 33 degrees of loft. So very similar club. We'll be talking about technology and the design here in a second, but in terms of what we're going to do in the setup for this test, I'm going to do 20 swings of each 7-iron, breaking it up into chunks of 5 swings. So we'll do 5 with the Taylormade, 5 with the Callaway, and keep going back and forth until we've reached 20 swings for each iron. First up in this test is going to be the Taylormade P770. Oh, drawing just a bit, so that's going to be left. pretty good. That is really, really, really good, and it felt good. God, that felt good. That must have been pretty straight. Pretty good. Yeah. Pretty good looking shot right there. We're gonna now move on to the first 5 shots for the Callaway Apex Pro. Now I've had the luxury of having the Taylormade P770 in my hands a lot of times. This is the first time I have held the Callaway Apex Pro, the 21 version. Oops. Great golf swing. That's kind of back to that same ball flight that the Taylormade had. That was a good golf swing. That was close. Man, that's cutting. It's gonna be way right. So we're gonna go back and forth now, rotating 5 shots each with the Taylormade P770 and the Callaway Apex Pro. So next up, again, back to Taylormade. I'm not the first club reviewer to do a head-to-head battle or comparison of these 2 irons. They're both fully forged, hollow body irons that look almost like blades. And we're gonna talk about the design differences after we've hit all of our 20 shots. But man, these are both beautiful, stunning, unbelievably designed irons. And this is really fun. This is really fun. Oh, that was a low, just stinger. Uh-oh, that's gonna mess things up. That looks like a pretty good golf shot. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty good. But again, I think that's a little bit of a pull. Like that was way off the heel. The same heely miss. And this one might be even better. All right, so that's the second fight of the Taylormade P770, back to the Apex. That's really good, I think. Let's go. I might have been a little short. Not that flush. All right, so the 10th one with the Callaway Apex Pro, 157 yard carry, 7,000 RPM, apex of 93 feet. Let's go back to the Taylormade. Oh boy. Oh boy. Boy, that was a little bit of a pull, but 169 carry, 5,100 RPM, height of 82 feet. That, boy, you know, unfortunately, I'm putting better swings on the Callaway than I am the P770. I'm really testing that forgiveness. That did not feel like a great swing, and it might have turned out okay. I mean, just so-so. Might have been just off the green on the left. All right, so that's our 15th shot with Taylormade P770. That one was 167 carry, 6,800 RPM, only a 75-foot apex. Not thrilled with that, but let's go. I'll do 5 more with the Callaway. Wow. So that was an absolute flyer there. And I think that's the concern with the P770 versus players having a concern that you're going to catch an absolute flyer here and just rip one. I think that's a little bit less of a concern with the Apex Pro. Now, that's really the first or only second time that I've caught one and just really hot. They've been pretty consistent. But that's something to keep in mind that is possible. So that was a 180-yard carry, 4,900 spin, height of 98 feet. So, and that smash factor got to 1.4. So I noticed sometimes for me, the higher the smash factor, the lower the spin. Just something unique about my game. But let's go ahead and hit that second one here. Oh boy, pretty good. Doggone it. All right, we're 19 strokes in. That that last one, it went way to the left. It's gonna mess up another tight dispersion ring. Doggone it. Of course it would be out on the night. All right, last one. Let's see what we got here. Oh, baby. All right, so there is the last swing of all 20 shots for the Taylormade P770. That was a 173 carry, 5,300 spin, height of 97 feet. Club head speed 87 miles an hour, ball speed 119. That's a smash factor of 1.36. Yeah, that's okay. But otherwise, that was a great. Now, that last batch of 5 shots that I just hit with the P770 was by far the whole entire day. Let's see if we can also end the Apex Pro on an equally good footing here. Last 5 swings with the Apex Pro. Man, this has been so much fun. I hope you've enjoyed it. I sure as heck have. Woo! That went high. I wonder if that means short. Wow, that went high. Wow, that was a really good shot. That's probably one of the best swings I've given the Apex. Not too shabby for the first of the last batch. Oh, pulled that some. Pulled that a lot, actually. Yeah, that felt like a good swing otherwise. Looks like a good golf shot. Like a real good golf shot. Oh, in this last batch, that's another big pull. Oh, that dispersion on Apex was good. Okay, 169-yard carry, 5,800 RPM, height of 98 feet. There's a pull. Appears to be the one that is furthest left out of all the Apex shots so far. And wouldn't you know it, just like the Taylormade P770, that happened on shot 19 of 20. Funny. All right, let's see what we can end on here for the Callaway Apex Pro. That's funny. Oh man, that's such a good swing. So that's the last shot with the Callaway Apex Pro. How about you say we summarize the heck out of this thing? All right, then let's start doing the rest of our summary here. I'm just going to tell you right now, right off the bat, I love both these irons. I could game both these irons. I just absolutely love them. So let's start ticking through some boxes and going through a variety of different categories. And in just a second, we'll dive into all the numbers as well. So let's start by going through the looks category. Gosh, you can't say that either one of these is ugly. Let's first talk about the P770. And in both cases, both Callaway and Taylormade, I think, have done an excellent job taking more of a player's iron. It's not a game improvement iron by any means, folks, but it's also not a tour iron either. But taking a player's iron and making it look like a blade or a tour iron. And in P770's case, there's just not much going on to it, which is absolutely what I love. You've got just kind of the Taylormade logo, just the T at the end. P770 says tungsten. Very, very clean lines. More of a satin with a mixture of polished finish on it. It just is so great to look at a dress. Now, when you compare it to the Callaway, it has a slightly thicker top line, but not a big top line by any means. And when you compare this to a lot of other like cavity backs and game improvement irons, this looks like a very compact head. Again, Taylormade has just designed a gorgeous looking iron. Now in Callaway's case, they also have designed a gorgeous looking iron. My goodness, this is stunning, right? Now there's a little bit more going on to the looks, not to the technology, which we'll get to here in just a second, but certainly to the looks. A few more lines, a few more kind of grooves and different things going on the back of the head. It still, though, is the thinner top line, a little bit thinner toe than the P770, a little bit closer to almost a blade look, certainly at a dress. But if I'm going to go looks, and particularly in your bag and in your hand, then I'm going to go Taylormade #1 and Callaway #2. So Taylormade's going to win the looks category. But folks, this is so close. And in fact, I'm just spoiler alert, in everything we look at, from the data to the numbers to all the categories I'm going to go over, spoiler alert, these are really close in every single category. All right, now let's talk about the technology. The reason so many people like comparing these irons, and the reason I was so excited about comparing these two irons, is because of how similar they are in design. They both are relatively thin top line, relatively thin soles and toes. They both are fully forged, hollow body construction. Now, in that, there are some very slight differences. There's tungsten on both of these irons, tungsten along the bottom and a little bit on the toe side. And in fact, with the Apex Pro, Callaway is saying this is the most tungsten they've ever put in the Apex Pro. It's approximately 90 grams of tungsten material in there, and that definitely is paying off. You've got tungsten, but one of the differences with the Taylormade P770 is you've got kind of a foam or spray foam insert in there. And I haven't researched enough to see why they did that, but I think one of the reasons they did that is for a sound dampening mechanism. And that is a big difference. In terms of the sound, the Taylormade is a much kind of softer sound, which gives it kind of a smoother feel because of the relationship between what we hear with our ears and how that translates to feeling. Even if we were to somehow not be able to hear, the feeling would probably be exactly the same, but you know, the ears translate over to feel, is what I've been learning in golf. And so the softer, kind of deader sound of the P770 makes it feel smoother versus the Callaway Apex. That's a louder sounding iron, and then it feels just a touch more clickier, just a little harder. Again, none of these are by much difference, but a little bit harder, a little bit louder, a little bit softer feel with the P770. Now, the other thing that the P770 has done on the long irons, and they don't do this on the short ones, this is only the mid to long irons, they've got that speed slot in there, which kind of helps with low centered hits. It's supposed to help with forgiveness, a little flexibility to that face, so on a little bit lower ball strikes, you still get quite a bit of launch and speed. So on the tech category, gosh, how do I do this? How do I pick a winner? First of all, they're both very similar in design. So here's what I'm going to do. In the tech category, I'm going to go P770 with the win on the tech side. And the main reason is because of what they've done on the inside of that hollow body construction, which I think has made it more forgiving. And also, I like the sound a lot better. Now, one other thing that I failed to mention in this tech design, which now has me almost changing my mind, is so in the Apex Pro line, they've got the artificial intelligence flash face technology. And what that basically means is that on every single iron in the bag, from the pitching wedge all the way up to the 4-iron, they've designed the face differently, slightly different, slight variations, particularly what's going on behind the face. They've designed them all differently to give you very similar, or the type of characteristics that most golfers are going to be looking for. So very interesting little kind of design story on the AI design to the Apex Pro that you won't find with the Taylormade P770. So does that give it the leg up? Well, boy, that's close. How do you not call this a tie? This is the worst review video ever. Right? All right, so we're gonna call it a tie on tech. So what I wanna do next is we're gonna go over to the TrackMan monitor here and look over all the numbers and compare the performance of these two irons. All right, so looking at that shot dispersion, obviously in white we've got the P770, in yellow we've got the Apex Pro. Now when you just look at this right off the bat, it's pretty clearly jumps right out at you that the Apex Pro is a tighter shot dispersion. The flashing ones again are the P770, and there now the flashing ones are the Apex Pro, and it looks considerably tighter. Now when I go back to the Taylormade, obviously I've got a couple pulls here, that's gonna skew it, and then we've got these flyers, and I said this throughout the video. Taylormade P770, I think you run the risk of you catching one just really hot, flushing the heck out of it and carrying the green or something, which could happen, I suppose, with any iron. But is the Taylormade P770 a little more likely to just catch one clean and go further than you really want? And the Apex Pro, that didn't really happen, but with the P770, it did. I also think the way TrackMan does this, in summary, they've kind of gone a little melodramatic with that ring there for the P770, a little more exaggerated, but whatever, it is what it is. Nevertheless, even if you ignore the ring, just look at the flashing dots. The Apex Pro is certainly the tighter shot dispersion, both front to back and right to left, than the Taylormade P770, both front to back and right to left. Now when we're looking at the ball flight from this angle, a couple things just real noticeable here. I'm only going to touch on this for a second. You can see that wider shot dispersion and variety in the white, which is the Taylormade P770. Little tighter shot dispersion with the Callaway Apex Pro. The other thing you'll notice is you kind of look up at this, that Callaway Apex Pro definitely had the higher ball flight. Very interesting. Let's look at the ball flight from the side profile. All right, just looking at the side profile of that ball flight, here it is for the Taylormade P770, and now let's look at it for the Callaway Apex Pro. Yeah, that Callaway Apex Pro is higher, but it's not just that it's higher, they both went high enough. The bigger thing to me is the consistency of that ball flight. Notice how tight that dispersion is in ball flight, quite a bit tighter than the P770. So a little bit more consistency. Now a lot of people, they compare consistency to forgiveness. And I just want to tell you, I don't do that. I don't see it that way. I don't think consistency and forgiveness are the same thing. But it does certainly demonstrate that you could be quite a bit more consistent with the Apex Pro versus a P770, which, by the way, I don't think that's bad. It just isn't as good as the Apex Pro. Now, when we look at the aerial kind of drone, if you will, look at the shot dispersion, that's the 20 shots with the P770. And there's the Apex Pro. So, yeah, I think, oh man, it's so obvious. The Apex Pro is a much tighter shot dispersion. Again, just kind of all over the board. Now, I want to say something that a lot of you might not even like, the fact that I'm going to say this. What if I took those two away? Just try and envision what that would look like if I took those two away versus now when you go to the Apex Pro. So were those two pulls just, that's the danger of the P770, or were they just bad swings by the player? Even if you then took 2 away, any random 2 here from the Callaway Apex, you know, those, the Apex will still be more tighter dispersion. So, all right, there you go. Now let's take a look at the numbers here. All right, just doing a side-by-side comparison now. We've looked at the dispersion and the ball flight and everything. So average club head speed for the Apex Pro, 87 miles per hour, 87.3, 86.9 there. You know, very negligible difference. But here's a big difference. Ball speed, 116 for the Apex Pro and over 117 for the P770. Making the efficiency of the P770, the smash factor, quite a bit more better, 1.35, 1.33. However, spin, 5,700 spin on the Apex Pro and 5,300 spin. So 400 RPMs, that's a lot. That is a lot. Launch angle for the Apex Pro, 18.9 versus 16.8 for the P770. Height, average of 95 feet versus 86 for the P770. Almost the same on hang time. A little, you know, right to left movement on that ball flight, but let's look at that carry. Wow, 164 carry on the Apex Pro, 169 carry on the P770. Don't care too much, but about total distance, 172 versus 179. Really just focusing on carry there. I just took a moment to actually change my columns here, so forgive me that changed, but there's that landing angle there. 47 degrees, almost 48 degrees with the Apex Pro versus roughly 45 degrees. Wow, you know what that tells me? That Apex Pro is going to have some major stopping power when it gets to the green. All right, let's finish summarizing these things. Let's go through a couple more boxes here. One box we're going through is forgiveness. That's definitely an important one because when we talk about the golfers that are going to be gaming these irons, let's admit it, folks, even though you might be a pretty low handicap and a darn good golfer, you're still going to have some mishits. And in terms of forgiveness, I'm going to go with the Taylormade P770. Now, that is going to surprise some of you, and I've gotten this feedback quite a bit on YouTube, that when you have one iron that is more consistent than the other iron, that must mean that it's more forgiving. And I am telling you, consistency doesn't mean forgiveness. It just means it's a more consistent iron. It produces a more consistent result on your average shot. Whereas with the P770, I had a handful out of 20 swings. I had 3 or 4 swings that I was really unhappy with, and yet the numbers were pretty decent. Really decent, in fact. And I didn't have as many mishits, hardly any mishits, with the Callaway Apex Pro. I was striking it pretty good. Okay, that just means that I struck it better, but on the actual bad shots, the Taylormade P770 performed better. Now, whether I should or should not do this, I also put feel into the forgiveness category as well. And so the Taylormade P770 felt better even on the mishits than the Callaway Apex Pro did. Well, the feel for me relates to how forgiving it felt. So again, I'm going to go in the forgiveness category. I'm going to say that the P770 was the more forgiving iron, not as consistent, but definitely the more forgiving. Now, one of the things to look at when comparing these two irons is price. These are basically the exact same price. They're going to both be in the neighborhood of $1,300 US. Now, there's some that are going to be around $1,250. There's some that might even price it at $1,325 or $1,350, but about $1,300 on average, and that's in US dollars. Now in Canadian dollars, I think in Canada, for my Canadian followers, that's going to be floating around $1,700. I have a growing European contingent, especially in Great Britain, so for my English followers in pounds, I think these are going to be around £10 or so each. So my point is regardless of where in the world that you're buying these irons, they are going to be so comparably priced that I don't think price is going to be something that makes a difference at all. You are merely going to be going off performance in this one. And so in this case, there's no value add, there's no value difference, there's no real cost difference. And if it is, it's so negligible that it won't come into the equation whatsoever. And so really cost, all square. So let's get to the real question. This is one of those rare iron reviews where I'm not just reviewing it for you guys, I'm also reviewing it for me, because remember, I'm considering what's going to end up being the next set of irons that land in my bag. So it's decision time. Who's the winner of this test? I don't know. How do you choose between these two irons? But everybody wants a winner. Everybody wants a choice. Sign on the dotted line. Make a commitment. Whew. I'm going to say this. The winner of this test is going to be the Callaway Apex Pro. I think when you look at those numbers, the Apex, the spin, the carry distance was still really close. It had I think a noticeable difference in smash factor, in ball speed. That definitely does concern me just a tiny large. I think the Apex Pro is probably, if for this test, going to be declared the winner. So, ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the Callaway Apex Pro. Now that said, am I ready to say that this is the iron that's going to go in my bag? I'm not ready to say that yet. I'm going to tell you this, folks, full transparency, and if you've been following my channel, you know I've reviewed a boatload of irons. It's down to these two, but I think I need to do more tests. Now, will I put those all into a review and a video? Comment below and tell me if in every further test that I do between these two irons, do you want me to film them all and put them in a review? Because what I think I need to do next is test the whole range. I don't think I should just do 7-iron versus 7-iron. I think I should do pitching wedge versus pitching wedge, 7-iron versus 7-iron, and 5-iron versus 5-iron. Comment below, would you like to see me do that video? It might be a long one though, folks, so something to consider. I mean, think how long this video's been, and it was just 2 clubs. Now imagine if we're comparing 6 clubs, 3 in each for each iron. Would you like to see that video? Because I easily do that. I don't know, given the situation that I'm in, I don't know that I'm going to be able to just get a bag of these irons and game them both out on the golf course. If there's any way that I can do that, Callaway, if you're watching, Taylormade, hint, stinking hint, then I would happily do that, but I would love to do that. But it's down to these 2 irons, folks. That I can absolutely assure you. The Titleist T200 stayed in the running for a very, very, very long time, but I have crossed it off the list. It's just down to the Callaway Apex Pro and the Taylormade P770. Today's been a good day. I'm really excited. And I was more excited to get those spin numbers back up. If you watched a couple of my recent reviews, the spin numbers were dropping down, and that was just swing related, folks. And it's all part of the maturation process and that growing process for me as a golfer, the continued development of my swing mechanics. So I was really happy to be swinging the club quite a bit better and producing a lot more spin than I have on the last couple review tests that I've done. So that's good, but I'm not ready to say which one's going to go in my bag. If you force me to choose a winner, I already chose the Callaway Apex as the clear-cut winner for this test, but I just keep thinking there are more tests that I would like to do through a broader range of the irons throughout the entire bag before I make that final $1,300 decision, right? And yeah, look, here's a simple fact though. Not all of you as consumers are going to have the ability to run the full gamut of tests that I run when I'm reviewing clubs. So let's just pretend for a moment that you were asking me which one you should go with. Here's what I'm simply going to say based off the test. You can't go wrong with either. They are unbelievable, right? I love both of these irons, and if you were going to game either one of them, I wouldn't fault you in the least. I just am in love with both of these irons, and I can't even stress enough what a difficult decision it's going to be to choose between the two of them. Folks, I sure hope this video helped. Here we are at the end of this thing. I had a lot of fun. We've declared the Callaway Apex Pro as a winner today, but not quite the final candidate to go in my bag. But we'll take a quick look at that later on, and we'll do more tests. But I've had an absolute blast. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, as I said earlier in the video, make sure that you smash that subscribe button. I love all the support that I'm getting. It's been really awesome. Make sure and give this video a thumbs up. Forget that, not that thumbs down, pretend that that doesn't exist. Hit that thumbs up button and give this a like. Comment below with any questions that you might have, or what your thoughts are on this review. Or maybe perhaps based off of the numbers that today. Tell me which one of these irons you would have chosen just based off of today's results. This was a fun one. We got a lot more reviews coming, and I'm excited for them all. I haven't mentioned it in my last couple of videos, but folks, I think I have to mention it. I'm down doing today's testing, as I have been with almost all of my reviews, down here at Fiddler's Green, which is located here in Eugene, Oregon. I have to give them a shout out. They have been so supportive to my channel, to what I'm doing to bring you more content, whether it's just reviewing iron sets or doing head-to-head battles like this, every single club. These guys have incredible selection. They have absolutely incredible pricing. If you're in the market for any new golf equipment whatsoever, whether it be apparel, but their specialty obviously is golf clubs, from drivers, fairway woods, hybrids, irons, all edges, putters, you name it. And they have everything here. They have absolutely everything. If you're anywhere on the West Coast, or even especially the Pacific Northwest, which is where I'm at, I encourage you to make a trip down to Fiddler's Green to make sure and give this place a really great look and perhaps get properly fitted. My favorite fitter down here, and I love all the guys, Trent, Roger, Todd, they're all wonderful, but the guy that really does the most service for me is a guy named Raymond. So if you come down here, I'm gonna give Raymond a shout out. Make sure and ask for Raymond. Their club fitters are knowledgeable. They're very attentive, and they give you excellent customer service here. They've got launch monitors to give you all of the data and really look at what you're doing with your swing. They've got a lot of ways to make sure and properly fit you. So it's a great experience with a real kind of down-home feel here, where you feel very comfortable. Regardless of whether you're a really skilled golfer, 0 handicap, plus handicap, or whether you're just a beginning golfer, they've got something for you here, and their pricing's unbelievable. Now, if you're somewhere else around the United States, if you know exactly what your specs are, then give them a call and find out what they could do pricing-wise for you. Don't just go off of what they show on the internet. Give them a call, talk to Raymond or Roger or one of the guys here down here at Fiddler's Green, and they'd be happy to help you out. But I'm a big fan. I'm very, very grateful and thankful to the support I get from Fiddler's Green, so make sure and check them out. All right, folks, well, that does it for today. I'm super excited for all the other tests and reviews that we have. I'm looking forward to seeing your feedback and your comments in the comments section. And until we do the next video, folks, it's been a great time. I had a wonderful day today, so we'll see you on the next one.